Why are people in companies so often afraid of change? Why do people fear new things? And what can we do about it? Let's find out. Okay, so let's start about resistance to change. Maybe you have an innovation project or an improvement project in your company and there is a lot of opposition. And I will teach you few tips and tricks how to understand and empathize into your people and how to overcome this resistance. So the resistance of change comes from fear. And the reason for that is we are people that fear. Our brains are machines built for survival in the forest, in the jungle or in the cave, not to survive in a corporation. And we are programmed, or we developed as people who fear, because people needed fear to survive. There are two types of basic fears: fear of unknown and fear of rejection. We are afraid of unknown because everything unknown usually killed us in the past. And we are feared of rejection because if you live in a group, in your tribe, and you are not very, let's say, coherent with the group, you say some unpopular opinions, you might be rejected by the group and then you will die outside of the cave. So we are programmed of being afraid of rejection because that is a fear of death, actually. So anytime you start a new change initiative in your company, you will always see three groups of people. People who will support you, people who will ignore you, and people who will resist the change. And one company, I don't know which one, they found out that across their projects it's more or less the same proportion. You could expect about 20% of your people to support change and innovation, 70% to try to ignore or they don't care, and 10% actively resist the change. Now I would like to speak about these people who resist the change, how to fight the resistance, and how to empathize and understand these people. So let's start with the arguments they usually give against change. Arguments why something should not happen. Okay, let's start with argument number one. It is not possible. Anytime you propose a new automation or new products being made or new way of products being done or new way to serve customers, people cannot imagine this being done. Imagine an improvement process in a finance, for example. Let's say you spend 20 hours every month on your finance reports. And you said, okay, our goal is to limit these reports and shorten it to 1 hour instead of 20. People will tell you, oh, that's not possible. And it's quite normal because anytime you do any improvement project, it is quite normal that you don't know how to achieve the results when you are starting the projects. So people are afraid of that. You need to start walking without having the exact map how to reach your destination. And that is scary for a lot of people. And it's scary for me, even after years of experience with improvement and innovation projects. So try to understand these people and try to explain this concept very carefully. Argument number two. Oh, we don't have people, time, and budget to do that. For that, I say, okay, so when will you have the right time, people, and budget? And let's be honest to ourselves. The answer is never. There's never time when we have just enough work so we have time for improvement and we have enough money to invest in every solution we need. We never have a perfect condition. And that means that the best time to start is now. So I always show the example of Gandhi. Did Gandhi had enough resources and people and budget, to build a revolution in India? No, probably not. But still, he did it. So sometimes we need to start even when our resources are not perfect. They are always not perfect. Argument number 3. The leadership won't support us. This is a strong one, and very often these people can be true. And for that, I say there are 2 sources of innovation in a company. One source is enlightened leadership, when you have like a visionary leader that inspires their people to build new things and drives the change. That is not the case in all the companies. The second source of change is something which I called the islands of positive deviation. And these are a group of enthusiastic people inside the company. They just like the company and they have an intrinsic motivation to change things even when they do not have the support of their boss or of the boss of their boss, even if the conditions are not good, because they just feel this is the right thing to do. And it might be the case that you don't have the enlightened leadership. And it's a question for you, or is a question you can ask your team. Do you still want to do the change? Do you feel motivated to do it? Do you feel motivated just by the act of doing it, even though the conditions are not perfect and we will probably struggle? Do you still want to do it? And if the answer is yes, then it's the good thing. Next argument is that will not work with us. And I can tell you, as a management consultant, I've been to more than 100 companies implementing things like Lean Six Sigma, design thinking. And I can tell you, every time I go there, they will tell me exactly the same thing. Okay, they will tell me, oh, Lean Six Sigma, that's the methodology for other companies. We are not Toyota. These principles will not work with us. But things like Lean Six Sigma or design thinking, these are general principles how to change things, how to make things better. And I can tell you, from my experience, they work the same everywhere. Next thing people say is, we tried that, but it didn't work. And they might be right. But the question is how they tried. I hear this very often. There is some internal resistance to lean management, or there is a resistance to Kanban, or there is a resistance to digitization, or there is a resistance to Microsoft Teams, because people say, oh, we did that, but it didn't work. But now you have to ask yourself a question, or you need to investigate, what was the project that didn't work? Was it executed in the right way? Was the right time? Because very often I found out that the reasons why people say that, because that was a failed and lousy project. So you can still do that again, and this time right. Next thing is, we do this already. And that is a tricky one, because there are several reasons why people say that. When you speak about, okay, let's start a Kaizen culture, or let's start standardization process in our company, or let's start process mapping and finding the gaps. And people can tell you, oh, we do this already. And very often people say that because they don't fully understand what is the concept behind the idea you would like to do, and they assume it's something they do already, even though they don't do it. So it's about more communication and more explanation. Sometimes people also abuse this argument, to just try to scare you off your project by just not saying the truth. Next argument, okay, it can harm the customer. And this is a tricky one as well, because it's good to be genuinely afraid that a change will harm a customer. That's fair. But I see very often that people abuse this argument to everything, because especially customer-facing people, they know that anytime they bring this argument to management, the management will back off. So for example, you have an idea to optimize inventory in your warehouse to keep lower stock because it's very costly and can drag your company down. But the salespeople say, oh, it might harm the customer, and the project can be stopped without evidence. So we need to really understand what is the extent and what is the probability that it can harm the customer, and work not with ideas or opinions, but work with data. And yeah, let's do it. That's what very resistant people say, because the smart resistant people, they know it's not a good idea to publicly oppose management in public meetings and everything. Sometimes in some companies it's a good strategy to just agree on everything and then later not do it and get away with it. So it's a very sneaky strategy. Be careful about it. And now let's talk about what people actually think when change comes. And that is very important to understand, to be able to empathize to people. The first thought, anytime there is a new improvement or any initiative or any project that comes to a company, the first idea people have is, I will lose my job. And the truth is, in 99% of the cases, they are not right. Especially these days where it's very hard to find skilled people. People usually improve processes not to fire people, but to be able to grow, to keep the people and do more with the same amount of people. But it's very hard to explain people. And people are very afraid, especially if there's a lack of information. If you don't give your people enough information what's going on early in the projects, they will assume something bad will go on. So be sure that you communicate enough. The next, let's say, things people could be afraid of, if it works better, I will look stupid. And that happens very often. For example, for me as a external management consultant, I work with alone or with teams. We come to companies and we work with their people to fix something, to find ideas how to make a process more effective or efficient. And that can hurt some egos, because if there's a manager who has been in this position for 10 years and then you come with a team that fixes a problem within 10 weeks, then this is hard. And sometimes people are so afraid of their ego being hurt that they are willing to resist the change, and build obstacles for you to avoid this project at all. So be careful about it. Next thought is, I want my privacy. And very often people don't like improvement projects, because improvement projects consist of a lot of understanding of the current state, about understanding how the process works, mapping, making things really visible. But shining a light somewhere into dark corners might not be welcome in every part of companies, because let's say some people do not work as productively as they should, for example, or they make mistakes and they would like to have some hidden buffer to hide their mistakes, or there can be even some sketchy things going on. Next thing, people think, okay, the project teams knows nothing. And that can be the case when people assume that in order to improve processes, you have to have a deep industry knowledge. And the truth is, in most of the cases, you don't have to. The ideas behind process improvement, understanding the root cause problems, finding gaps, and then suggesting ideas. Sometimes you don't need to be skilled in and have expertise in that field. You need to have expertise in maybe Lean Six Sigma and process improvement in order to do that. And that is very hard for some people to understand. Keep that on your mind, especially if you are like an external or do something with a different team. Next thought is, let's slow down a bit. Okay, and this is people think, once again, this is what I said. Okay, people would say, okay, let's find a way how to secretly make this process, disappear, how to make secret obstacles. And people use some very sneaky methods to keep you from working, like, let's say, not give you data, or just asking unnecessary questions, and delaying everything and hoping that the project will fail in the meantime. So be careful about that idea. So what to do with that? Basically, first thing you should do is work with influencers. And I don't mean working with Instagram and finding people on Instagram, meaning influencers in your own company. Because definitely there are people in your company that are influencers. There are people with strong opinions and maybe some charisma that the others trust and listen to what they say. And it's important to find those people, because some of those influencers can be your supporters. Some can be those that resist. But if you can work and give extra time, extra listening time, extra communication time, be extra careful with those people, then you might have a chance to influence. Because you will not have a chance to have a chat with every person in your company. So it's good to start with influencers. Step number 2, inform people on time. That happens very often, that people, give people information about the project too late. I've seen situations where there was a new project. Nobody should be fired, but it took the management 2 months after starting the project to tell people actually what the project is about. And the people would just see managers meeting in meeting rooms for hours and talking about stuff behind cryptic names. So, and if that happens, rumor will spread and people start to resist, even though they are not even sure what the project is about. So give information on time. One rule of thumb of information as well is if you feel that you communicated everything enough, if you feel that you said everything, in that situation, you should communicate about 5 times more. We somehow assume that everybody carefully reads our emails and reads our strategy documents and listens to company town halls. But that is not the case usually. You should be like a politician. And if you feel you are repeating the ideas over and over and over and over and over, that's the right level of communication. So it's normal to feel that you over-communicated, because there's a noise and sometimes things need to be said more than just once. Listen and acknowledge. Very often I see on my projects that the biggest people with resistance are people that actually love the company. They genuinely love the company and they are genuinely afraid that the new project might hurt the company. So sometimes also these people feel that they are not heard. The management do not understand the full situation. So sometimes with these resistive people, you can just talk to them. Just talk to them, acknowledge what they are afraid of, listen to them. And very often you will be surprised that it works. And that's the only thing you need to do. After you do that, the people feel that they said everything and they calm down and they can be your biggest supporters. And next step, fire the worst. If it's not possible, if some people are just like too, let's say, toxic in their communication and in their resistance, you should not allow that. And number 5, escalate issues. If something doesn't work, if you are a project manager and you face resistance in your team or with the people you should work with, then just tell the project sponsor and communicate that openly so it can be solved on higher levels in your company. And that is quite normal. So these are the 5 steps what to do with it. Change management is it's an art. It's not a science. It's an art. It's a soft skill of empathy and communication. But it's an important skill. Every time on Lean Six Sigma trainings, I tell my students, knowing the methods, doing the projects, that's 10% of the work. 90% of the work is to talking to the people and overcoming the resistance, because it's quite normal. We all are humans. We all are afraid, and that's how life works. But if you are a good communicator, good listener, and you show some empathy, you can make this work. You can change things, and your company might grow and skyrocket, and your projects will be successful. So thank you, and good luck with your projects.